I've heard like a lot of people texting me saying that I'm confused between choosing software engineering versus data science. I think you would be the right person to give an answer for that. Maybe I'll come back to you later.
It's in the air. Like machine learning is in the air. You cannot escape it.
Getting my first job, last year was in the US, was a very like emotionally and mentally draining process, to be sure. Went through a lot of rejections and ghostings. We'll talk more about that in the session.
Finding a projects could be sometimes challenging, but there are ways to find it. Uh, I see a lot of resumes just having the Kaggle projects that is been done by thousands of people.
But my roommate, he was set on Google, and he eventually did crack Google. And he had he was a IIT grad. He had a good network of people who were already at Google. So almost every weekend he would do mock interviews. And once he was into like second month or third month, I was like, okay, I should probably start this. And I think mock interviews and getting good mentors and finding a good network of people, that is like a game changer. And I think that's what eventually helped me crack Amazon.
So welcome everyone for the ultimate data science roundtable. We have some amazing data scientists here. Not just regular data scientists. I would call them. These people are top 1 percentile of the data scientists out there, and I'm so honored to have all these folks for this roundtable. And I'm going to structure this roundtable into like three sections: past, present, and future. Which means what did you do to become a data scientist in your past? I want to talk about that. So how did you build your profile? How did you start from scratch without experience? Everything that you have done in the past. And I'm also want to talk about the present, which is what do you do today? I mean, you're not just normal folks. Or you have some big brands on your name. You have gone to some top institutions in the world, and you're working for some top companies in the world. I want to know, what do you do exactly today, or what have you done special to be in this position today? And I also want to know about the future of your career, and what's your career plan in the future. Like, AI is being here. Nowadays I just use Perplexity or ChatGPT to code whatever I want. So what do you see, like, is it gonna disrupt the data science roles in the future? Or if yes, what's your plan? If no, how are you equipping yourself to stay ahead in the curve? So this is what we are going to discuss in this entire roundtable. And I was just mentioning, this is not going to be like a question and answer interview. It's just going to be, we have four amazing data scientists, and they're going to talk to each other. I'm just going to be the host, so that we have a template for it, an agenda for it, and I'm going to learn along with the viewers who are watching this video. Like, without any delay, let's get started. So we have Karun, Swagata, Nutan, and Nirmal. I think it'll be great if you can introduce yourself more than myself giving you an intro. So we can start with Karun.
Sounds good. So yeah, hey all, my name's Karan. I'm a senior data scientist at Walmart. Been working in data science for I guess 3 years in US and 2 years before in India. Primarily focus on recommender systems and NLP. I graduated from masters in Carnegie Mellon, and yeah, I was an SD before. Was sort of a very gradual move into data science, but really enjoyed the space. Had a lot of very inspiring mentors who got me into the space, and yeah, in love with sort of data science. And because of all those people who helped me, also do a bit of mentoring on LinkedIn and Topmate. And yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
And I also have questions for all of you guys. Like, why are you doing this? Like, you are very active on LinkedIn, which is not a default thing that you have to do, and you don't have to be a part of this roundtable. What's the purpose that you are trying to give back to the community? I also want to know that. But yeah, we'll come to that. Swagata, I would love to know about you.
Yeah, thanks, Hari, for having me, and happy to meet you all. I'm Swagata, and I'm a principal data scientist at Boomi. I also have a podcast called the Data Dojo, and I'm the chapter lead for a community called Women in Data. My journey to data science was a bit unconventional. I'll dive deep into it a bit later. But Karun, I'm also from Carnegie Mellon and graduated in 2018. I've been in data science since then, so 7 years. And I got my first job with a lot of difficulty. So we'll dive deep into it later. I just fell in love with a random course I took at CMU called Intro to ML, and that's how I just decided this or nothing else. So I've done bunch of different roles within data science, being specializing in NLP versus recommendation engines at Amazon. I was doing forecasting models. Right now, I'm more of like a full stack person. Doing a little bit of software engineering, data science, ML ops, LLM ops now. So it's been fun.
Oh, that's really great. It's interesting to see someone is working on LLM ops. I've never spoken to someone yet, so maybe I'll have more questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we can go with Nirmal next. So I think he has one of the versatile profiles here,
Yeah,
and it'll be great like if he can introduce about that.
yeah. Hey, this is Nirmal. Yeah, obviously, thanks for the great intro. And I won't say like I'm that special, but thanks for putting that out. Trying to help the community is always been my first thing. But let's go with my intro. I'm currently working as senior data scientist in Microsoft. Uh, well, like everyone else, I think everyone have a different journey to get into the data science, right? My path to data science or being a data scientist was extremely tangential with what I came here. Uh, I came to US for my master's, and I have a goal that hey, I'll get into tech. Uh, I never thought that data analytics or data science would be that the career path I will be into. So mostly I was a little bit into data, but kind of like data admin side. But I was thinking I'll probably do like software engineering or something else. Then it was 2009 when I graduated. So obviously, if you guys recall, that's one of the bad year in US, right? So they call it the market is crap now, and I think if I look back, I still have something to relate, and it's not that worse yet. So yeah, it was finding a job was extremely hard at that point. So I somehow came to find out about US military program. I went to US Army. So I worked in US Army for 5 years. I came out. I worked in US government for another 5 years as a data analyst. And that's what my data analyst or playing with the data job kind of like career begin. So I really enjoyed, and I thought that maybe I will establish my career in data analytics. So at that point, I was not even taking any ML class, or I was not sure data science exists. So then from the military, like the government program, like I got an opportunity to go to the school for my another master's on data science. So I did my data science master's from UCST, uh, and then that actually opened up more doors in the data science side of the house. Uh, my first data scientist title was with Wells Fargo, and then yeah, I realized that I've been working on security for a long time. I mean, finance is not gonna scale for me. So I switched back again, and then start applying jobs in security plus data science, that intersection. And I think that's interesting so far for me. That has been a absolute awesome journey after that. And I'm in security with Microsoft now. Yeah. And thanks for having me. And I see some of the faces I already know in LinkedIn, so I'm excited to be here.
I'm honored to have you here, Nirmal.
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
let's finally like Newton. I think she has a profile that everyone is dreaming to have today, and I'd like to know about you, Newton.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hari, for your kind words. So I hold a bachelor's in statistics from Delhi University, and then I worked in India for about 2 years, and then I decided to pursue my master's. Um, I graduated from health data science program at Harvard in December of 2022. And then I worked at two healthcare companies, or rather hospitals, as a data analyst slash data scientist. And now I'm currently working as an applied scientist at Microsoft. Um, the my journey to data science was, it began very early when I was in my high school, and I was kind of looking at what potential professions I can get into. I think maths has always been something that I was very interested in pursuing, and I was looking at career paths that involves doing maths. And I heard someone say about data analysts, statisticians. Applied scientist or data scientist term at that time wasn't very popular. So then that's how I did my bachelor's in statistics, and I learned more about machine learning, AI, things like that. And I thought that yes, this is the right path for me, and this is something I want to pursue long term. Um, uh, in the US, when I graduated in 2022, that was also one of the toughest markets, I would say. Maybe not as tough as back in 2008 9, but definitely it was very very challenging. Getting my first job last year was in the US, was a very like emotionally and mentally draining process, to be sure. Went through a lot of rejections and ghostings. We'll talk more about that in the session, as Swagata mentioned. But yeah, happy to be here with such accomplished panel members.
Yeah, I can resonate with you, Newton. Like, I graduated in December 2022 as well, and it was really bad. So
Yeah.
I've heard some big names here, like Microsoft, Harvard, CMU, U.S. Army. But let's take a step back. So whatever you have accomplished today, obviously you've started from scratch somewhere, right? So how was it? Like, what was your aha moment that I want to get into this field? And once you got that aha moment, like how did you get started?
For me, I don't think it is a aha moment. So I started my career as a front end developer. I was like an HTML JavaScript guy. I did that primarily because it was sort of the easiest way to start earning money in college. Like build websites for sort of small businesses around. So that's how I landed up at Dell. I was into a bit of like React and stuff like that at that point in time. And there was this project where they wanted to analyze clickstream data, and essentially they didn't want to take up the time of senior developers because they weren't sure if it would lead to something. So they said that, okay, we have these junior developers here, let's ask them to do it instead. So that's when I got into my sort of first data analytics project. And it was sort of interesting, looking at numbers and trying to find a pattern. I think that's still the part of it that I kind of enjoy. Like more than model training and tuning, I like the error analysis portion where I try to figure out, okay, the model went wrong somewhere, how do I figure out where it went wrong and how can I improve it? So figuring out those patterns, I still sort of find it interesting. And that, I think, was the point where I thought, this is pretty cool. If I could make a career out of it, it would be nice. Talk to a few people, learn that there are data specific roles, and I think that's when it started.
Oh, that's it. I've heard like a lot of people texting me saying that I'm confused between choosing software engineering versus data science. I think you would be the right person to give an answer for that. Maybe I'll come back to you later.
Yeah, I can go next. I'm still looking for my aha moment, to be honest, uh, because I think for me, when I obviously left Nepal, right? I'm originally from Nepal. I didn't tell that earlier. So the only goal was just to get in the US, get a master's degree done, and get a good job. I mean, only thing you dream is good things, right? Expectations versus reality comes once you start hitting the ground. uh, you come here and you graduated everything, right? So finding a job challenging, like Nutan was mentioning. Obviously a lot of rejection, ghosting, uh, that mental draining process you go through. And then and then you take a route which is absolutely not even planned in my career plan, going to US Army, right? uh, And then I feel like that put me in a regression. And but the bigger aha moment, I'm still looking.
That's an interesting story, Nirmal. And
Thanks.
I would like to ask you, like, the path that you chose to become like a data analyst in US Army. But yeah, we can come to that later.
Yes, sure, sure.
I think for me, my aha moment was in my first job. I was working as a data scientist at an analytics consultancy. At that time, it was kind of a startup, but now it got acquired by Accenture AI. But we got to work with some big players in different industries like telecom, hardware manufacturing, environmental services, things like that. And we were helping them make sense of their data, and that process was a very rewarding process, like just by um, manipulating the data, creating some visuals, creating some simple models. You can tell so much, you can communicate so many insights, and it's beneficial for the company in making their processes more efficient or whatever it is. And I just found that process very rewarding, because I was doing something that's related to maths, which I've always adored, and B, I'm making so much impact, and that too with such big players in industry. So I think that was kind of my aha moment. And then I decided that yes, this is something that I'm going to stick with. And then I pursued my master's at Harvard, and rest is history. And now I'm at Microsoft.
Okay, so before I get to my aha moment, I have a little backstory. So throughout my life, I was the typical good girl Indian, and following the conventional path, getting good grades in 10th and 12th, taking science and then doing engineering without really giving it a thought like, is this what I want to do? But only one thing I was clear was I want to go to US to pursue my masters. In what, I had no idea. So at that stage where I had to decide what do I need to do, I was in complete rebel mode. Like, I'm done with this conventional path. I want to do something different. I don't care what it is. So at that time, I was like looking at courses. Hey, typical software engineering seems very boring. I want to do something different. And literally, I Googled, and my Google search was engineering plus design plus business. And that was my Google search. I thought, like, let's see what comes up. And then the first thing that pops up was this course from CMU called Integrated Innovation. And they had this Venn diagram of engineering, design, business, and there's the cusp. And I'm like, wow, this is exactly what I wanted to do. I don't know what it does, what it teaches, but this sounds very cool and very interesting. And I applied for the course and I got in. I also applied for some safe universities just so that I do the conventional backup, masters in data science, masters in CS. But then because I got admit from CMU, I was like, I don't care about anything else, and this is the cool new course I want to do. A lot of people were advising against me, like, hey, this is a new course. We don't know what you're going to learn. What is the job you're going to do? Are you going to do, what is the job? Like, engineering, design, and business is so vague. Like, what do you do? Are you a product designer? Are you a analyst? What kind of roles do you do? And I had absolutely no clarity at that time. I was like, I just want to do it. I went in, and the course was also for just 9 months, so that's also scary. There's no internship, nothing. You just get a job directly. So I started the course. I was a little bit confused, like, what am I learning? I'm learning some design thinking principles. And I'm coming from a CS background, worked as a software engineer before, and this seems very new. But yeah, I just didn't click for some time. And one of my friend, I mean, Karun, you might know that when you go to CMU, every university has like this vibe, or something is in the air. Like when I go to Stanford, everybody's talking about entrepreneurship. So when you go to CMU, it's in the air. Like machine learning is in the air. You cannot escape it. So some friend of mine said, hey, you have to take this course called Intro to ML. And I thought, like, hey, Intro to ML sounds pretty basic. I can do it. But that course was one of the hardest course I took at that time, and it was life changing. So that course, when I entered the room, when I saw the vibe, when I learned what I did, I'm like, wow, am I actually comprehending this course and I'm learning this? So that was my aha moment, and then rest is history.
That's interesting, Swagata. I think I have a similar experience as well, like at Columbia. So
Okay.
whoever I've like all of my friends who did their masters, irrespective of their major, they might have done their major might be in electrical engineering or industrial engineering or something. I don't
Yeah.
know whether it's in Columbia's air or New York's air. It's everyone is in analytics today for some reason. If I
Yeah.
see someone who got into hardware electronics role or software like software kind of role, it is surprising for me to see someone like that from Colombia.
Yeah.
And so that's so interesting. And I have a big question for all of you guys. So one of the most performing videos on my channel was how can you become a data scientist without experience? So the question is very simple, but the answer, I know it's really difficult, because whatever role that you see online for a data scientist role, I bet you can't find a role which doesn't have requirements of 2 plus or 3 plus years of experience. I mean, today it might be easy for you guys to get into another data science role because you have experience. But let's say for someone who's starting from scratch, who doesn't have even a single point to add on their experience section on their resume, you might have in that place once, like a long back, right? So when you were in that place, what did you do to add something on your resume which got your first data science job?
Okay,
I yeah,
yeah,
go.
go ahead, Karun.
No, as in my answer, I don't think is very good because I didn't do anything special. I sort of lucked out into a decent program at CMU, like the data science program at CMU. So I had like a lot of good peers. So I mean, I don't think universities really teach anything different. It's just the people who get into the universities who sort of push you forward. And CMU, like everybody was very competitive. Like it's not just about the grades. Everybody's into hackathons. They're doing projects on the side. They're publishing research. So it's like there's like a huge momentum. Like it's like being in literally a stampede of bulls, so you will just get carried away. So because of that, I got into different projects, and by the end, when I was looking at my internship, I had like pretty good projects that I could write about. So I think that was what helped me. So nothing special on my end, it's just I was at the right place at the right time, I think.
So for me, I did my bachelor's in statistics in Delhi University, and I went there with the intention that I will work as a data scientist in the industry after I graduate. But when I reached there, the reality was quite different, because their program was very theoretical. It still is. Like a lot of universities, the syllabus is not that quick to change. And I discovered that when I was, talking to my seniors about their experience of getting these kinds of roles, I came to know that unfortunately, there's a little bit of discrimination when it comes to these kinds of tech roles when you're from data scientist, when you're from statistics in Delhi University, because what happens is DU is not known for these like techie courses, and it's not very, my course wasn't very tech heavy. I picked up programming from like online courses and things like that. So companies, when they were coming to our campus for hiring, they were extremely selective. They would pick like one student for like a data science role, as opposed to an engineering college where they are picking up people in bulk. So I feel like it took me a while to really break into data science, and get my first job that I was really excited about. And what I did was I basically kind of milked out any opportunity that I could find where I could work with data. So I think there was one professor in my campus who was doing a survey of students, and they were looking at how much energy, what's the carbon footprint that each person is generating on an average. So I just kind of joined her. I helped her with the survey, and then in the end, I helped her with data analysis. And similarly, then she told me about a fellow professor in some other college who is looking at a survey data of underprivileged children in some slums around Delhi, and looking at the relationship between malnutrition and some other like demographic factors, socioeconomic status. So these were some of the projects that I kind of picked on, and I did some basic statistical analysis, and I had something to kind of show for in my resume. And then I started kind of applying for internships at um, other universities like IITs and stuff, where professors were doing some pretty cutting edge research on ML and things like that. So I started applying for those kinds of universities with these few basic projects. And I luckily found an internship under Dr. Ganesh Bugler, who works in computational gastronomy. So it's looking at the recipe data, like analyzing the recipe data, finding patterns, and looking at, can new novel recipes be generated by learning patterns within these existing recipes. So these were some of the interesting projects that I did, which I think added a lot of value on my resume. And when I sat for my placements, or when I started applying for jobs, I got a pretty good response, because as a third year student, I by that time I had like three or four good projects to show for. Yeah, so I think that it was a long like process, and sometimes it was a bit challenging, because as I mentioned, in Delhi University, it isn't very, at that time wasn't very common for people to get into these kinds of tech roles, so I kind of had to find my or forge my own path.
Yeah, I have my take on this too. My own way, that what happened to me versus when I talk to mentees and I learn from the other folks and what worked for them. And I'll share both ways, right? So for me, I think I was coming out of the DS program in UCST, and the program, that course was designed for working professionals. So I was still working, so I did the class like on the weekends and the Fridays, right? So so I came to connect with a lot of other folks who are working in companies like in San Diego, mostly the big companies, Qualcomm and Intuit, and a couple other companies. Like there were a few folks from Amazon as well. So it was the first time for me to interact with the folks who worked in the private industry, and I've been in the, like after school I went to military, government, right, and federal government. So, and there was, I see the big difference, and that one of the thing I struck me was I wanted to do something outside as well, because I felt like life was cruising really well, but it was a little bit not in the growth direction I wanted to go, right? So and that's why I add value today to networking and building connections, because uh, that kind of helped me a lot. I One of the person that I met in the school was he had done some work in the Wells Fargo before, and he knew the team that was hiring for data scientists, and they were actually creating a new centralized AI ML team, and they were hiring a bunch of people. So when they are doing this mass hiring, not only for one role, you get a little bit more chance to get in interviews, stuff like that, right? So that was one of the luck, having talking with folks. Then I quickly realized in my interviews, that the start topic started coming about discussion of the data science projects that I have done, and I have none in my profile, because I've done obviously data analytics work. Then some of the work I have done, I'm not able to share it because of NDA, because it's all security data. So now I'm like, I have no projects to actually talk and share, and like have these conversations in the interviews, and I just became transparent. Like I cannot share a lot of stuff. I can walk you through the process that I do on my daily basis. And these are some of the projects that I've taken. I have from ideation to production, and I just make that data science workflow I took in my mindset, and then I try to reflect the work that I've been doing on, against that workflow. How do I explain this process? And it worked out. But then that gave me one learning lesson: is, hey, there were a couple other things I could have done better. And this is what I've been suggesting to my other mentees today: is like Nutan was saying, that finding a projects could be sometimes challenging, but there are ways to find it. Um, I see a lot of resumes just having the Kaggle projects that is been done by thousands of people, and what is the interesting piece coming out of that project? At least, what is the interesting learning you can share on that interview from that process? don't do the projects just to have that in your resume, right? So you need to have something different done differently or something. then then I realized that there are ways to do it. I've been talking to many folks, my connections, my seniors, and I will summarize everything in three different ways. One is, like Nutan mentioned, most of the university professors, they are in the research areas. They usually have projects. So all you have to do is talk to them and ask to volunteer, or even go with the low pay or no pay type of role, just to get yourself in that experience, right? So working in the real world projects makes a extremely big difference.
Yep, that's true, Nirmal. I see a pattern here. So the answer that all three of you gave are projects, and not just regular projects. Whatever you have done is something different or unique, or non-cliche that which not many people would have on their resume. And I've seen Karun's post on LinkedIn the other day, him giving some resources on how to uh, get those projects, to get those non-cliche work. So I think that's the advice that all three of you guys are giving, and I would like to know about Swagata's opinion on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the tips that everybody gave, I agree with them. But the thing that worked most for me was networking. So because I was doing a very unconventional course that nobody knew about, I used that as a conversation starter. So, whenever you go to job fairs or just talk to anybody, and people will say, I'm a master's from data science or blah, blah, blah. And I had this very unique master's name, and people would obviously question, hey, so what do you learn? So that helped me as a conversation starter. I also was lucky to get some projects because I did a lot of cold emailing, found some interesting professors who were willing to give me some work or pair me up with a PhD student just to learn. So all of that did help me. But the main thing was networking. And all of this did not help me get a job, but it definitely introduced me to a lot of people. And I made a friend through this process, and she was working at a company called Highmark Health, which is in Pittsburgh. And back then it was, I don't know, still it was one of the biggest recruiter, and it's a big company. Luckily, one of my projects was in the healthcare space, and this friend of mine who I just randomly met at one of the events, she said, hey, they are, building their data science team, and I think you would be a good fit. And I was like, I was having that imposter syndrome, like, I don't even have a master's in this, I don't have enough projects. She said, don't worry, I will directly introduce you to the hiring manager, and you don't need to go through that pipeline. So that opportunity of getting directly in touch with the hiring manager was like helpful for me, and I met him over a coffee. And we were having a coffee chat, and he asked me very non technical questions like, hey, how much would you rate yourself as a go-getter, or how much would you rate yourself? And again, being that imposter syndrome, I would say 5 6, not saying like 7 8. And then he's like, because you're saying 5 6, and because I can judge you, you're probably an 8. And I'm like, sure, if you think so. So he said, okay, I think you're a good fit, and let me take one final tech screen with one of our leads. And that was it. Like, he asked me some Python and SQL questions, which were pretty easy at that time. I was already prepping. And that's it. He said, like, we'll have you as an associate data scientist. And I didn't care about that associate word. I'm like, I just have data scientist title as my first job. So yeah, so networking for me.
That's interesting. And yeah, thank you guys for sharing your secrets to get your first, like, how did you get your first data science job. I think maybe we can end the first section of this roundtable, like, talking about your past. We've talked a lot about it. Now let's live in the moment. Let's talk about what you guys are doing today. All of you guys have some big brands on your title right now. I mean, Nirmal Newton is working for Microsoft, Karun is working for Walmart, Swagata is, I've seen her career has one of the tremendous career growth that I can see on LinkedIn. So it is not a simple thing, right? Like, yeah, whatever the advice you gave, and whatever everyone is trying to do, you can become a data scientist doing that. But being in the spot that you are right now, I would like to call, like, how to be in the top 1 percentile like you. What did you do different from others? Even what did you do different from the other people in the same room here? What did you do to be the top 1 percentile? Oh, deep thoughts. I provoked your deep
By
thoughts here.
by default, everyone is expecting Karun to speak by now.
But yeah,
Okay,
I've been.
we can go ulta then. I'll put Karun on hold. We can start with Swagata now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think,
Sorry, Karun. It's not meant to like
No issues.
insult you or something. I'm just.
yeah, for me, I think one of my biggest inspiration and role model has been my mother, because she's been in the IT for many decades now. And back then, when I was growing up, it was not very common to have a working top leader mom, because most of my friends did not have that kind of a mother figure. And she was back and forth traveling to US, so that's why I had this US fascination also, because from a very young age I saw my mom traveling, going to different countries, especially US, and her headquarters was here in Santa Clara, close to where I live now. And I had always that vision, like I want to be like her. And she used to be very, very extroverted personality, and I was the completely opposite person growing up. So she was very extroverted. She used to post a lot on LinkedIn, go to a lot of conferences, do all of these things, which I thought it's the common thing to do. So for me, I was just following her footsteps. And when I got my job and I was like, okay, I have my job and I'm a data scientist now, she told me, like, you have to build your brand. You are not your job. You, people should not introduce you as Swagata, data scientist at so and so company. You have to build a brand for yourself. And that triggered me to, start writing content on LinkedIn, going to conferences, events, networking, and I saw the benefits immediately. Like, I was more recognized at my current job, people knew me, getting opportunities like this, meeting folks like you, and I just enjoyed it so much. So credit to my mom.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'll go next, and we're gonna leave Karun hanging till then on this one. All right. So, yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing that story. It's very inspirational, actually, having your own mom as a role model to change her footprint. I totally second one of the thing that you said, Swagata. Like, you are not your job, right? So, yeah, we need to be aware of that. This is a hard reality that, I mean, companies. We carry the company's brand. Company doesn't carry our brand, right? So that means tomorrow, if anything happens, I get loose, then, I mean, I'm just one of the numbers, right, on them. So for me, I think you have to be always aware, right? So that, hey, if you have to switch something, if you have to switch career, if you have to do something new, so you have to have different identity besides that senior data scientist working in a Microsoft. So that was one of the triggering point. I started kind of like investing some time on personal branding side as well.
And Newton, yeah. So what do you think? Like, what made you stand
I
out from
think,
other?
yeah, I think what helped me reach where I am today was advocating for myself at work and even outside. Because I think I was, that, as Swagata mentioned, like that good girl, when in my first job, when it was time for the appraisal, I didn't know that you're supposed to have a talk about promotion and you're supposed to kind of advocate for yourself. I just thought that, oh, if I do a good enough job, I will just be recognized and rewarded. But I learned it the hard way. That's not how corporate works, and you have to kind of stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself. So some of the things that I started doing is taking the lead during meetings that we used to have with stakeholders and presenting my own work, taking the lead in asking the right questions, because I feel like in data science, asking the right questions is often sometimes more important than even getting the answers. For example, there was one project where we were working with like a water supply company, and they wanted to see, they had done some interventions, and they wanted to see whether that intervention is leading to any water savings or not. And one of the intervention was they replaced the grasses with some more durable plants which require less maintenance and less water. And what we found was that it's consuming more water. So we were all like puzzled, like what's happening, why is it why is it like this? And some of the other data analysts or data scientists in my team thought, oh, it's just an artifact of the data, we can ignore it. But I kind of took the lead to go and speak to the stakeholders, like, hey, this is something that's kind of alarming. Can you like talk to your customers and figure out what might be going wrong? And it turns out that when they get a new landscape, they want to maintain it even better, so they start watering it even more rather than watering it less. So that was kind of an interesting insight, and that was like, oh wow, like, asking the right questions and just taking the lead is like so important, because someone else might not be asking those questions. So I think that helped me stand out in my at my workplace, and that led me to gaining a few more responsibilities and projects, which I wanted to at that time, because I was building a profile to apply to Harvard, and the projects that I got to work at was really helpful. And I think that was those projects really helped me stand out in the application pool at Harvard. And then the the next opportunities that I got, such as internship at Meta, I think was very helpful, because I talked about all these interesting projects that I did and how I kind of made an impact with my critical thinking skills, or my data science skills. So yeah, I think that's what helped me. And right now, I'm also doing book reviews for for like technical book review, where um, there's someone, let's say, has written a book about LangChain. They are looking for people to review it and see whether this is appropriate for the audience, if there's any technical like discrepancy, things like that. And I'm right now doing that, and I feel like that is also something that has helped me keep up to date with what's happening in the field. So yeah, these are some of the things that I think really helped me.
Yeah, that's great. And also, like, I feel like you mentioned like taking leadership roles, like bringing out the curiosity outside. I think this might sound like intimidating at first. I think one solution for all these things is just be conscious in what we are doing, right? Like, I feel like we as a human being, we everyone has the curiosity in nature. Like by default, we have the curiosity, but I feel like but we don't have that. We always follow a template and we always go with the default mode. If you're working something, if a manager gives the work, we just do it.
Yeah.
If tomorrow we wake up and we don't know what we're going to do, we're going to sit on that 10 o'clock meeting that we have on Monday, and we by default go by some calendar and stuff. But I feel like if you're conscious enough to sit and think what is happening around the world, uh, we can automatically tweak the curiosity out of it, and I think it will lead us to do something different than others. And that's the pattern I see from you guys as well. That's why I asked the question, like initially by default you don't have to do this, but why are you doing this? Why are we doing this roundtable here? And I think this is what that's what I assume and I feel about you guys, that you don't follow a pattern here. So you try to be conscious and you just do what you like to do. That's it. And yep, let's go with Karun finally.
Yeah, I think the question sort of can be approached from like different angles, and I think everybody did. So the first or the most obvious way is like becoming the top 1%. Everybody would think, okay, FANG company. And just to quickly answer that, the easiest way to do that, two things are mentoring and mock interviews. So when I was at CMU, like for me at that time I hadn't really focused in on like, okay, the job prep is completely different from the coursework. I have to start focusing on that. But my roommate, he was set on Google, and he eventually did crack Google. And he had like so he was a IT grad. He had a good network of people who were already at Google. So almost every weekend he would do mock interviews. And once he was into like second month or third month, I was like, okay, I should probably start this. And I think mock interviews and getting good mentors and finding a good network of people, that is like a game changer. And I think that's what eventually helped me crack Amazon. And that's like the initial answer I think most people will be looking for: how to become top 1%, mock interviews and mentoring. The second answer, like everybody mentioned, like how do you stay 1% in your role? I think everybody already covered that pretty well. Like Newton mentioned, asking the right questions, advocating for yourself. Swagada mentioned in-person meetups and just staying in that community so that you can continue to learn from them. And like you mentioned, being curious, staying conscious, all of that. That's how you stay 1% and continue to maybe even rise within that 1% while you're working. And then sort of like the most favorite part, which Nimal covered, like the philosophical answer of what does it mean to be actually successful or consider yourself 1% in life, which is something that I guess everybody sort of struggles with because like imposter syndrome is sort of hard to, I mean, escape, I guess. For me, I always like the idea of community. Like at CMU, I feel like I didn't really know a lot of things, but a lot of people had different aspects of their life figured out. Like some people were really into entrepreneurship; they were going to in-person meetups, startup events, and hackathons. Some people were really into research; they had published a lot of good papers. So I realized that I don't really need to know everything or have a plan for everything. I just need to be in the room with these really smart people. So I really emphasized on the idea of community. So that's why I started LinkedIn. That's why I started TopMate. I realized that okay, if I start giving back to the community, I'll also get opportunities to be in this room with like really smart people. So it's sort of like I'm in the room, I'm hearing everybody, all these smart people talk, I get to learn, and I'm also holding the door open for other people. So it gives me a bit of joy, as well as it sort of satiates my curiosity. So that's sort of what I'm trying to index on, and everything else came up as a result of me indexing on that, I guess.
I
That's
love
an
that
interesting take,
analogy.
Karun.
I
Yeah.
I love that analogy of being in the room and holding the door open for other people.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
good one.
that's a very interesting thought, Karun. And thank you for giving a TLDR for the entire section.
Yeah, that was good
For
too.
sure, for sure.
Yeah.
But and so I have one more. You all have pretty much like a worthy experience to give an answer for this. So that I draw a thin line between when your intention was to become a data scientist, or when you're learning Python, SQL, whatever the technology is out there. Now we are working on it today, and tomorrow it's Monday, and you're gonna open your laptop and you're gonna work on one of those tools. So my question is, so what is the hard reality between the expectations that you had when you were learning, but today maybe you can agree to that, maybe I thought this is what I'm going to do and you're doing it exactly, or it might not be true, like you might have thought this is going to be the life changer in my work, but you're not even using that today, or something like that. For example, for my case, I never opened anything other than Jupyter Notebook when I'm working on a data science project. Today I don't open Jupyter Notebook at all. So I by default I go with VS Code. I work more on Python scripts rather than notebooks. But yeah, occasionally notebooks, but still more on Python scripts, building a pipeline, etc. That was the hard reality for me. I've never done that when I was learning data science, doing some personal projects. So, do you have any other like reality check for people who are learning data science today?
I think one thing I advise my younger brother, who's also planning to enter this field, is get yourself familiar with any cloud technology. Because when I got in, I did not have any experience with working with AWS or Azure or anything. And most of the tech stack we are building in my current role, you have to be familiar with SageMaker and building pipelines, the ML ops side of thing, which people don't really learn, and that's the hardest part. Like it's easy to do some experimentation, build models, cleaning the data. Not easy, but relatively you're familiar with. But MLOps side of thing, how do you deploy it, how do you scale it, how do you take care of the security, authentication? Those things are something we don't really anticipate and learn, and that's what I learned on the job. So if you already have familiarity with that, that would help you.
Yeah, yeah. I can add a little bit, and that's a good point. We don't learn on the I mean enterprise level of setting when we learn things, right? So, and uh, myself also, I was actually wrapped around the fact that hey, having more tools on my resume will make me stand out. So I was taking certification or learning more tools. Sometimes I I'm that kind of person who buy more book than read more books. I was just like, hey, oh, this is something I want to read. So that the fear of missing out, right? And never touched that book for a while. So I try to learn everything, and that's not a, and I quickly learned that that's not the right way to do it, because once you get in the your work setting or your enterprise, like however the pipeline, however the tool stack is set up, it might be completely different. uh, it is okay to have the major analytical tools and other skills like Python, obviously SQL, and few visualization tools. You need to have the first level of foundational tools on your belt, but then start doing more only on the tooling will help you nothing, because you quickly realize that I always use this analogy, like, if I call someone to handyman to fix my house for something, it's not the tools he uses, it's the skills he has, right? So he may be able to use any tools that he has, and sometimes he's like, oh, I forgot this tool today in my bag, but he uses alternate tool to fix the thing. He don't make a round trip to go back and just to find the particular tool he missed. So, and I think that is very important, because we need to be able to be versatile, figuring out that, hey, once you are in the real world setting, you should understand that technical skill is one thing, tooling skill is one thing, and that mindset, analytical mindset of doing it, executing is the other thing, and that's hard to build. Actually, it comes with time, experience, and you cannot judge yourself for that. That, hey, I'm not there yet. I mean, and it's slowly building it. You don't realize it's building on you, right? And then and that's why, like, people talked about imposter syndrome and all, right? It never goes away. The only reason, the only way to look at it is from look at it from positive aspect. The imposter syndrome is the only thing that is driving your continuous learning, right? Because you want to make sure that you continuously learn and get better out of yourself. So uh yeah, that's my take. And
Yeah, that's true. Like even when I started my learning, I thought getting more certifications is gonna help me uh, to keep myself updated. But as you mentioned, that's not the case. And also, as you said, like FOMO is actually a good thing. That's what keeps us updated in the field.
I think a couple of things you realize once you move from sort of academia to industry is, I mean, there are quite a few differences. The main thing is, at least for me, was data. So in academy, you have the data set, and that's all the features you will get. But in industry, it doesn't like that. Like more often than not, the improvement in the model will come from getting more features or getting better data. So the best thing that helped me was like coffee chats with people in the org. So almost every Friday, try and meet somebody in the org. In like I work in e-commerce, so somebody in e-commerce who can give me a different aspect of what data is being collected in the other part of the org that maybe I could use one day in my projects. So just getting a better understanding of the data that's being recorded in your org is going to be a big game changer, because you will be able to access more features, especially if I mean, some teams, I guess, they might be a bit more mature. They have like a centralized feature store. You can access everything there. But more often than not, documentation is poor. Feature store is not maintained well. So a lot of this data stuff, you'll um, get a better understanding once you get into the industry, and being able to ask that question that, hey, is this data available? This could maybe help the model. And just thinking outside the box, literally thinking outside your set of features that you have access to, that's going to be a big game changer when you start hitting the industry. The second thing, like Swagda mentioned, ML ops, more often than not, your model is going to fail because data issues. If you're on cloud, I would say all three are not as reliable as marketed. Like there's going to be network issues. There's going to be, I mean, a bunch of issues because of which your model won't work. And especially if you have a real-time model like a recommender system, if the model isn't working, that means immediate impact on the customer. You need to resolve it ASAP. Uh, so having guardrails and figuring out what to do when your model doesn't work, thinking of all those edge case scenarios, like training the model might take maybe, I mean, training and fine tuning and getting to a good result might take like 2 months, 3 months. Productionizing and making sure that nothing goes wrong, that will take like 3 to 4 months additionally. So being really good at ML ops and figuring out what can go wrong, and taking care of all those scenarios, that takes a huge amount of time. And you need to convince business that okay, nothing is going to go wrong, we're taking care of all the scenarios, we have all the guardrails in place. That also takes a long time, and I think people who are coming in from academia, they get a bit burnt out, or quickly burnt out in the process, because they feel like this is in their job. But you are the one who understands your model the best. You know what will happen if your model fails, so yes, it is your responsibility. And the last thing is like marketing. Like I've built so many dashboards that are no longer used. So you need to really get business buy-in for the first time, and make sure that buy-in remains for a long period of time. So like whatever it takes to make sure that your products are continuously used. Like if it's an API sort of thing, like a recommender system which is going to be continuously used, expose live traffic, that is an issue. But if you have dashboards, like business will use it for maybe 2 months, 3 months. After a while, your dashboard's dead. Nobody's using it. There's no traction. You see the click counts go down, and it kind of demotivates you. But you have to realize that marketing your dashboard and continuously maybe sending out email newsletters every week, summarizing the kind of impact that you're creating, talking about it to your manager, to your skip level manager, all of that is again your responsibility. So learning that skill is again something that people from academia, when they move to industry, they need to start picking up on. And yeah, there's a lot of other stuff as well, but I think these are the three main things. Entry level, as soon as you get into industry, you need to start learning this as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's true. And data science projects are the only one that doesn't have a finish line, right? You
Yeah,
build a model, fine tune a model, deploy the model, doesn't end there. You
yeah,
constantly keep on improving the model for next, like, of your lifetime.
yeah,
So
definitely, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think
Newton, what's your take
everyone
on this? Yeah.
I think everyone gave really great answers. I don't think that there's anything I can say to kind of match that. Um, but yeah, when I moved from academia to industry, I also experienced all of this that Karun, Nirmal, and Swagata have already mentioned, like, figuring out how do you deploy your model, figuring out authentication. I thought that authentication is not my job. Like, I build the model, you figure out how to authenticate. But I recently found myself learning about, service principle, RBAC, role based access control, things like that, which I thought I would never need as a data scientist. But it turns out it is your job, as Karun mentioned. And one more thing that I found quite, I was quite a little bit surprised about, is that so many meetings you have to be in, like especially at the beginning of the project, when you're dealing with a lot of ambiguity and you're still scoping things out. There are just innumerable number of meetings that you have to be a part of, to kind of be on the same page, to get the stakeholders on the same page. And I never thought in the academia that I would be the one doing that, because I thought, oh, there would be like someone, my manager, someone who's doing that, and then I will just know what the scope is, and I just go in with the data and the, build a model and things like that. But I that's just not how it works.
Yeah, that's true, Newton. And I can keep asking questions from you guys, like considering that you are giving me interesting answers for me. If I just write a script on whatever you're saying, I can make 100 videos out of this moving forward. And it's so good answers, but because of lack of time, maybe we'll end this section here. We spoke about your present, whatever you do today to stand out, and also your current role, etc. Because the section 3 is important, I guess, speaking about the future of data science. And I want to know your take on this because you're already experiencing what's happening here. So my question is a little controversial. So the question is, so when data science was a thing, like from mathematics to data science, I've heard that mathematicians were not appreciating that something like a data science is coming in. So people were like, so we already have this, we are already an expert on this, why do we need to use computer on top of this? I've heard like a lot of people were against it, like a data science coming in, because they were already an expert mathematician. Obviously it makes sense. I see the cycle again today. Today, AI is a big part in our role. whether we accept it or not. I see a lot of data scientists not changing their like skill set or not accepting that a data scientist job can be done using AI, and they don't want to learn AI because of that. But what's your take on this? Are you Do you really believe that AI can replace data science jobs? And if yes, what are you doing to stay ahead of the curve? Or do you believe that's not possible?
All right, so this is an interesting topic. So I will jump in. Sorry, guys. Hari just triggered me on this one. So, all right. So the thing is, obviously, like you said, there is a lot of talk in the market about upcoming wave of AI LLMs. Where things are heading, and that also triggers another fear of missing out. If we go back to our previous analogy, right? Uh, uh, how do I kind of learn? What do I learn? I mean, this is going in different direction. Today, something comes up. I mean, sometimes it just takes a day, next day or two, that becomes updated or obsolete, right? So things are moving really, really fast. However, I think in my all career, the thing that I have done is sometimes reverse engineer the things. Like you take a step back, like where is this heading? What is this happening? Sometimes you need to think about the picture after the smoke, right? I mean, I'm from military, so I'm using some of this military stuff, but so smoke sometimes is just to create, the confusion, to change the track, things like we use it, right? Because then you think about right after the smoke, what is it? the the same environment, same setting, same things will still going to be there, right? And and maybe few things that we can get out of it is like, how do you benefit for your current role? So understanding what you do in the current role doesn't really have to be extremely focused on the current role itself, but maybe some things that interesting to you and you want to do next in your next career growth as well. It's okay, right? Some people are kind of like learning the AI today just to make sure that they want to switch to a next career role, and which is completely fine. Some people are learning to see how they can benefit the current role, right? And some people are learning just out of curiosity, and there are many ways that people are falling for this, right? For this learning path. For myself, I'm thinking, I mean, we have heard this number of times, like it's not the AI who's going to take the job, but the people using AI, right? There was one interview from Sam Altman that really kind of like I liked it, because he mentioned, he broke down this ML ops pipeline, whatever we discussed, the data science workflow stuff. Everything we actually do is can be broken down into small tasks in a way that means when I come up with the project idea, right? So, as Nathan was mentioning, initially scoping out the things, writing documentation, getting with the product managers, getting with the PRD people, like what other things needs to be done. And then you, once you figure out your problem statement, you start getting with the data owners, getting the data, feature engineering, model building. Let's go. Like we all know that the life cycle, right? In all of these steps, there are things that are repeatable, there are things that can be automated, there are things that can be benefited from AI. So maybe I'm writing a document, i'm spending I'm spending 5-6 hours to write something, right, about what it's doing, documenting my model, for example. If I am able to create a prompt and pass enough instruction, I can get it done in 5 minutes, save my time, I can focus more time on something else more useful, right? Same thing with data cleaning process. uh, you can, compartmentalize your tasks and then build an agent or do something with the AI to get it done for you. So that means human factor is still important. It's not going to go away, because you are the one who is orchestrating all these tasks, right? Because you have to find out that, and there has to be always, in every step there has to be the feedback loop, that hey, you are cross checking, validating this stuff, right? So I'm not going to let AI to, hey, here's the data, build the features, build the model and put in production. AI can do it. I mean, if I throw the data right now in ChatGPT 4.0, it will do everything for me. Am I going to put that model in production? I mean, no, right? The answer is simple, because I need to go through everything, how it is take.
And I also have one more question. So when this GenAI, ChatGPT become a big thing, So I've seen people saying that prompt engineering is going to be the next big job and etc. I never seen a role something like that on LinkedIn yet.
Uh,
But I see a pattern here. So when I see data science roles online, so 2 years back, data science roles has XYZ requirements. Now 40% of the data science roles that I see online have an extra requirement, which is you should know LLM ops, like what Swagata is working on, and also they've added a layer on top of the data science role. So is it an AI engineer is going to be a new role, or just going to be an additional layer for data scientists to work on? Which means like I want to answer, like I want your answer based on, are you working on AI kind of projects today in your current role after all this hype?
yeah, we have in our, we're building a lot of POCs right now, and there's no escape. Especially, I mean, if you're in Microsoft, we, like we are supporting the AI right now. We are kind of like thinking, how can we get the extreme value out of it? Uh, there are very limited projects that made it to production still because of all the nuances, authentication stuff, and doing it safe. Responsible AI is going to be next big wave, because right now we everyone is focused on using the AI and getting things done. Nobody is using it, thinking about safe way of doing it, or what are the the other adversaries effect around it, right? So, and that is going to be a next big thing coming up. So we are definitely using it. As I said earlier, it's not just a hype. It's going to have a long-term effect. But uh, titles, in my opinion, I think it evolves. Google used to call quantitative analyst. Now they call them same people data scientist. They may come up with different title infusing AI. So I mean, ultimately, it's like you said, there might be a couple additional bullet points on the responsibility on the job description, but to cover that responsibilities, I mean, you can do self learning, or even like I said, if it applies to my role, I'm currently learning a lot. Just by not only by doing on my day to day project, but also learning myself, trying to implement something on my own, things like that. So that needs to happen in a way. Uh, 10 years career in data science, one thing I can tell is that data science is a moving target. You're never going to get it. So it's just the best is getting close to it. So that's all I can say.
I think Nirmal's answer, every answer is always followed with an analogy, I guess.
I'm from military.
Yeah, I think I second with Nirmal when he says that when if you are at Microsoft, it's hard to escape. This AI wave. Like everyone's
Right.
working with LLMs now. I'm currently working on a classification project where we have like 15 plus categories, and we are using a RAG-based pipeline. We are using LLMs for that. So I do find my roles change a bit post LLM, in the sense that if the same project I was doing pre LLM, I would be spending tons of time doing data cleaning, doing feature engineering, and now as you mentioned, prompt engineering, right? We're just writing different prompts and just throwing all the data, giving all the data to the LLM and letting them make the decision about which category to pick and why. So roles have changed. I definitely see my roles, day-to-day responsibilities change. But as Nirmal mentioned, that I think there will be a lot more focus on evaluating the LLM's output. I feel like there isn't a lot of research today which evaluates the LLM responses. Um,
Mhm.
Both in terms of RAI and in terms of the technical correctness of the answer, there isn't a lot that is in the literature right now, other than just creating another prompt and letting it evaluate the answer for you. So definitely, I feel like evaluation, RAI, will be the next big things, and a lot more researchers will be working on this in the coming few years. And this is already happening. OpenAI in the beginning of this year introduced a new concept called super alignment, which is the idea that we will be using a smaller LLM to evaluate or align the responses of a much larger LLM. And apparently, in the post that they said that they would be spending about like $10 million on this new research, area that they are introducing, and they already have people working on it actively, and they are offering to provide funding for research institutes who want to work on this area. So I feel like evaluation, RAI, super alignment, these kinds of things will be the next big thing.
Yeah, I have a perspective coming from a non big tech company. So, 2 years or whenever ChatGPT came before that, we were a team who were doing this data science stuff and nobody really cared. Like, it's a nice to have. Like, when your product is not, big tech or something central to data, then data science is a nice to have, not a must have. So we were that part of the company where you give us insights, build some models. It's nice to have, but we can do without you. But as soon as ChatGPT and this AI era came, our team suddenly became overnight sensation. Like, this is the team, go to this team, learn AI from this team. So suddenly, after ChatGPT came, I was very happy because suddenly now our team is becoming the most important team in the company, and everybody's coming to us, learning AI from us, asking us questions. Like, we were also learning AI. I mean, we were also at that stage where we are picking up things. So now the entire company's focus is, okay, we have this cool product, but now how do we integrate AI in every aspect of our product? So then we got so many use cases, and we are using prompt engineering, we are using Claude, we are using multiple LLMs, we have done fine tuning, RAG, everything that you've heard about, we have done it all. And it's because of the buzz that was created, we actually got more work. And of course, the nature of work has changed. We are not doing, like everybody else mentioned, we are not spending a lot of time in cleaning data and building model, but it's still a lot of work. We are spending more time in identifying the use case, how do we integrate it, the productionizing aspect of it, LLM ops, and all of that cool stuff, which is very exciting. So work for our team, for me, has increased a lot, and we have become like the voice of AI for the company. So I'm pretty happy with all this AI buzz that's happening, and I hope it continues. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And also, we all have a selfish motive behind this, right? Uh, so we know people like pioneers of data science. We know we could never reach them. Maybe we can exclude Nirmal here, but pioneers of data science, they have a lot of experience here. We could never meet the experience part, at least. But AI, it just started 2 years back. So if we start now, we are already in the early stage of career,
Absolutely.
which means we have an upper hand already. Maybe that could really help. Yeah, finally, yeah, I'm curious to hear Karun's take on this. He's taking notes when you guys are speaking. So,
Uh,
No,
yeah.
no, just jotting down things that I found interesting. But yeah, I think definitely any new technology brings with it like a change in the nature of work. So I sort of just compare it to like the idea about ChatGPT is just reducing the barrier between how human and tech sort of interacts. So whether it be from assembly to Python, Python to ChatGPT, it just essentially increases the output of one single person. So like Nirmal mentioned, yes, there could be a bit of impact to jobs, but essentially as a single person, you would be able to have more, essentially produce more output. So yeah, LLMs do seem to be getting permeated into most of the work that we're doing. So not my team, but another team, we already have like products out in broad. Like in search, there's this idea of broad queries and narrow queries. So in Walmart, if you do a broad query right now, Gen AI sort of categorizes products and you can see the search results. So LLM products are definitely here and probably here to stay. That's You have to accept that. So what can you do as a tech person to sort of be or stay up to date? I think the point that you need to be in your career is if you're coding, you need to be pair programming with ChatGPT. So whenever you have questions, ask that. Whenever you're coding, so in pair programming, there's this idea of driver and navigator. You should be the navigator. ChatGPT should be a primary driver. More often than not, it would be able to help write a decent amount of the logic for you. The problem arises when you need to inject business domain knowledge. Then you need to write a lot of the code for yourself. But ideally at this point, you and ChatGPT should be in like some kind of pair programming style of coding is what I feel. And as and when things get updated, you just need to stay up to date. Like Nirmal mentioned, it's not AI that's going to replace you, it's a person who knows AI very well. So yeah, that's where I feel you should be at, and it's here to stay, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, that's like there's so much of a positive take out of this from you guys after listening to all this. Even like I agree that last 1 year, I'm not even playing a role of data scientist. I'm just a product manager. ChatGPT is writing my code. I'm a code reviewer after that. So I'm just giving the duties properly, and ChatGPT is writing the code. I'm reviewing the code and putting it in production. That's what my role is. Maybe they're gonna give a new title for this role in the future, but let's see where it goes. And but thank you so much, guys. And I promise that we're gonna end this at 90 minutes, and we are there already in that mark. So maybe I'm gonna take like 2 more minutes, one final to just give a conclusion here. Just one short advice to give to people who are just starting out in data science, because that's my target audience here. People who are watching this video are learning data science, or maybe trying to get their first job in data science, or they got their first job and maybe they are trying to transition into data science. So you understand who the target audience is. In one short sentence, if you want to give one advice which helped you, or which you think you should have done it in a better way, what would that be?
Yeah, for me, I think you have to be yourself. I mean, it may sound, like a cliche, but it is what it is, because you cannot compare yourself with everyone who is getting into Fang, things like that. So, uh, especially Fang, and like I talk to mentees sometimes, and it kind of sometimes makes me think twice. Like, hey, they come to me and they say, hey, I want to get into Amazon, Meta. Like they start from the company name, company profile, and which is already wrong, because you need to understand first your passion, or what are the projects you have built. Then the second question I ask them, like, what are the projects you have done in your portfolio? None of them kind of maps to this industry he wanted to go in, he or she wanted to go in, doesn't match. So the one simple advice I have is, company name, company profiles, make that a secondary thought. Understand the domain you are interested in, right? So I never liked working on finance, right? So that means I tried. It's okay to try in the early stage. Is that is what the beauty of data science is. It covers a lot of other industries, right? So name it: transportation, supply chain, e-commerce. Like tech. We have folks from different industries here itself. Everywhere it matters. The data science is there. So you don't define yourself as a data scientist for a particular company, or like some brand. Don't associate any brand to your role to begin with. Try out different things. Like you may I may not like the job in fintech, for example. Then you can start applying to another, and you may enjoy that data. You may enjoy doing that as your long-term career, right? So this having a good data science role that gives some level of satisfaction. No one is satisfied 100% to any role, if you ask me, right? So but having that optimal level of satisfaction in your role is what you are looking for or thriving for. For that, I think you should find your domain. You should find your what interests you, right? And then you can go from there, like company and stuff. Like there's ton of good companies out there. Like for me, I think if I'm not working for Microsoft today, I don't care if I'm working for another company, as long as it I open my laptop, like you were saying earlier, and then tomorrow, if I'm doing my work, the frustration don't hit me right away, right? I feel like I wanted to do this, like this is some task in my plate that I really wanted to do. Things like that should come up, and it's hard to get in that situation in the beginning, because in the beginning I understand the job market. I was in that same shoes, that having a job is important than anything else, which is true. today. So that's why you explore multiple things in the beginning, but then you start thinking on a long term. Your career is a marathon, right? It's not gonna end. It's not a sprint. So save some energy, and that will help you cruise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like it takes a lot of guts to tell that working for Microsoft and saying that you should not keep that as a end goal, right? Because I
Yes.
see a lot of people market themselves just using the title that you have.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that, Nirmal.
Yeah, I think I will go next. So I, in one word, if I have to, give an advice to someone, I would say collaborate. That is something that helped me immensely when I was doing my job search beginning of last year. And this is something I learned students at Harvard do really well, especially the undergrads. They have these really tight knit, almost like societies of people who are interested in, let's say, quant finance and consulting and things like that. Like, and they form these like tight knit groups, and they are sharing resources. If anyone has an interview, they will share like what helped them, what did not help them, how did they prepare, things like that, and they will organize like mock interviews amongst themselves. And I kind of took inspiration from this and formed my own little group, and I was organizing mock interviews almost like 2 to 3 times a week. And that helped me immensely, because as soon as I got an interview, I felt so prepared, because I had already gone through these like tens of mock interviews, and I had gotten so good at interviewing. I feel like that is also a skill that, so yeah, that really helped me in the job market.
I think I can go next because my advice is also similar to what Newton mentioned. Two things: mentoring, mentors, and second one, community. So you need to have more than one mentor, because a mentor can have a lot of influence on the kind of career decisions you make. So have like two or three, because you don't want to be too heavily influenced by one person. And there need to be at least a couple of, I mean, probably like 4 to 5 years ahead of you, primarily because then they'll be able to give advice that sort of sees ahead of the curve. Uh, so have mentors who sort of would be interested in investing time in you in a consistent basis, like maybe twice a week. You can find plenty of them on LinkedIn. I do mentoring. The next one is community, primarily because you don't just need people who will help guide you along the way. You need people who are going on the same path that you are, because you need to bounce off ideas, you need to vent your frustration, you need to understand if you're moving at a decent pace or not, especially if you're interested in sort of reaching that top 1%. And your own community, I mean, people who are your peers, I feel like have a lot more curiosity, because it's sort of a community of people who are hungry, I would say, to sort of achieve something. So those two things, having multiple mentors and a good community. And in terms of community, if you're looking for one, Mary Nova, she's a content creator on LinkedIn. She has a good community called Break Into Data. So yeah, mentoring and community, these two things, if you get started, I think you're set like 80%.
Yeah, those were all great points. Something to add for me that worked: three things. First thing is networking. So I always tell people, like, your network is your net worth. So as much as you can network with people, you never know where the opportunity might come. Second thing, what Nutan also mentioned, is like putting yourself out there, advocating for yourself. So whatever you're doing, if you're doing projects on Kaggle to start off with, put it out there on LinkedIn or your resume, or where people can see it on your website. And third thing, it's a bit tangential, but something that has helped me a lot is kind of exercise. So I advocate people like spend a little bit time in doing some sort of sport or exercise, because I do strength training, and that mentality, when you push yourself for the last squat or whatever, when you're pushing yourself beyond your boundaries, that energy transfers in work or whatever you're doing. And that mindset, when I'm having a bad day, I'm like, when I can do the last squat, I can do this. So yeah, do a sport or exercise.
I think I somehow got lucky in bringing like similar minded folks here. I guess everyone is giving an advice and an analogy, and I can so much relate with that as well. And thanks for that. That's so interesting take here, Swagata. Um, so I'm gonna end the session here. So I know I haven't asked a lot of questions that I should have asked, if I'm starting out. But anytime, I think you all can text. I'm gonna link all their LinkedIn in the description. You can text them, ask your questions, or put your questions in the comment section. I'll make sure that I'll follow up with these four amazing hopes, hoping that they'll reply to my message and get your answers for you. So thanks. If you have made it till this end of the podcast, I know it's really difficult to watch more than 1 hour podcast. I'm sure that you've got a lot of insights, which is not really possible, which is not out there in many other videos I've seen. So thanks to Karun, Swagata, Nutan, and Nirmal for all your insights and also telling it in a very interesting way as well.